All right, so here we are at the start of turn 17. We're going for the extended game. And so the time is 10:30 hours, 6th of June, 1944. And I've just finished reading the rest of the rules, the other half of the rule book, to come up to speed on what it's going to take to do this. Lots of exciting things, German actions being the main thing that will be the difference. The German artificially intelligent player will be doing all kinds of things to try to thwart our goals. And I did finally decide to forego the German armor section, which is right at the end of the rules, because I just got to the point where I just thought enough is enough, and I'm going to proceed without the German armor as an option. And all looks very exciting. Oh, now the other thing I've done, of course, is well, I say of course, you may be able to notice just by looking about you. I've used the markers here, the red and the blue markers, in a different function now. What I've done is I've cleaned things up to the point of now, because we've got really a different set of rules that govern the victory points and the victory conditions now. One has to get a certain number of victory points, just as before, but one receives them for rather different things now. What I've done is I've marked with the red markers. These are actually negative victory points. Each one is worth -1 because they are uncontrolled Widerstandsnesten. Okay, so we've got 4 down there. Oh, this one's a double, of course, but a total of 4 effectively. And oh, that's a good question. I wonder if a probably does count as 2. I'll have to look it up, because I wonder if that actually counts as 2, because it's 2 hexes. So is the point for each Widerstandsnest hex or each Widerstandsnest? I'll have to look that up, because we've got a double one there, and we've also got a 2 hex one here as well. Anyway, those are negatives that I'm starting off with. And then we've got positives over here, I've marked with the blue cubes, and they are VP. You can see the VP there, victory point hexes, of which there are 40 odd apparently, that I presently control. So I've got a whopping 4 of those. So I've got to expand on that, obviously. And essentially they are, well, more or less, don't quote me, but they're basically reinforcement positions that either have a road going through them or a road adjacent to them that I think leads off the edge of the map. I think that's more or less the idea. So, yeah, so as you can see, you know, you've got like VP, 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 but you don't have it, for example, over here. There's a positive wasteland over here. There are no VP hexes there, so if possible, try to sort of avoid that, because if you head in this direction, it's going to get you nothing, basically. Although, yes, if you can get some of your guys to exit the map at the marked letters. So we've got the letters. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay. You get 1 victory point for each step that you exit off one of those roads, but you do have the rather difficult thing to maintain, which is to say, on the last turn, the hex involved has to be in communication. So the idea is that the unit is, you've had a unit that's gone off, you know, just sort of gone south to interfere with the enemy, and they're more or less, they're in supply, as it were. They're in communication, so they can't just go off as a rogue unit unless they're a ranger and they've gone off this way. If they are, then rangers don't need to be in communication, as near as I can remember anyway. That's the general idea. What else have we got? Of course, we've got a lot of forces coming on right now, and then, of course, we're going to be setting up engineer bases to clear sections of the beach, and also to facilitate more rapid movement because they can use their traffic management skills to do that. Then we can also set up command posts rather than having mobile headquarters units running around. We can set up command posts which will have ranges that expand slowly. I mean, what do we got? We got 16 turns. So, for example, this one here, there's a HQ target range, HQ range, sorry, there. So that would mean, what would that mean? If they start off there, it would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns to get up to a HQ range of 4. But if you had that, I suppose, I mean, what does that mean? If you had, let's see, imagine if you could, well, if you move the HQ first of all, so that you can get it up into some sort of commanding position. Let's imagine we moved it up to this. Somehow we managed to get rid of them. And we managed to move an HQ up to there. It probably can't be an enemy field of fire or anything like that. But let's imagine this HQ managed to go. Oh, no, they can move 2 hexes, I think they can now in the second half of the game now. So imagine if you got that HQ up to there, for example, or even say up to there. And then if you had a range of 4 hexes, you could go from there. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd almost be off the map. I suppose 1, 2, 3, 4. So it really could have a very big impact. But of course, unlike in the first half of the game, where, well, I suppose even in the first half of the game, enemy units could pop up anyway. But in this, you've got enemy units that can actually move as well. They can advance. They can move around. And anyway, okay. Well, we're off to a good start. So let's get on with it. Okay, so here we are at the beginning of turn 18, which is 1100 hours on D-Day, the 6th of June, 1944. We've just played one turn of the extended game, which is considerably more complex than the well, what you might call the basic game. I can't remember what it's called, the clearing the beaches or something like that, the first 16 turns. It is very interesting. It's certainly, I can see it's going to be, I think it's going to be just more interesting. It's going to move slower in terms of actually physically playing the game, but the behavior of the Germans is going to be so much more diverse that yes, you've really got to keep your eyes open for, you can't just sort of surge ahead and assume nothing's going to appear in front of you, because that's not going to be the case. The Americans did have rather a nasty surprise in which the reinforcements, let me just check something real quick. That's right, the German reinforcements appeared here. The thing is that the Germans have communication. Communication can come down here to here. It's a bit like, in rough and ready terms, it's a bit like trying to have a line of contiguous zones of control in a more sort of, in a larger, more strategic game like, say, the Russian campaign or Battle of the Bulge or Anzio or something like that. So because you've got units which, as long as they're at least 2 steps, they can control the hex they're in and the hex that's next to them. So that means that these 2 here, for example, are blocking, well, no. If we go from here, you start off from the beach. And then you go, we can see we've got American units. So let's say if the Germans had a card come up that said they might have a chance to reinforce, let's say, Widerstands, this position here, for example, okay, because it's unoccupied. But is it in communication? Well, it's not, because if you go, there's a pocket like that, shaped like that, okay? And it's because it's based on the beach. You go back to the beach and then you go forward and you've got this unit here, but that controls the hex next to it. He controls the hex next to him. So that's blocked there. Same thing here. And then over here, he's an outlier. He's beyond the pocket, as it were. Then you've got those two there. They're next to those hexes, so no communication can come through here. Okay. Yeah, so that means that this communication was possible to get to here. This unit, as you can imagine, well, it wasn't there in the first place, it moved. But if it was an infantry unit with at least 2 steps, then that would count. But it isn't. So therefore, German communication can come all the way down there. Reinforcements, in other words, could, jog up the road and come straight into that position there. So anyway, they appeared there. This was surrounded by units that had been reduced in strength. They were only worth 4. One of them was here in the intensive fire. Luckily, they weren't fired upon. Well, they weren't fired upon because they just appeared. That's right. So what did they do? They climbed down the bluff. That was a free move because the general was in play. He was there. So they climbed down the bluff. The general has basically said to himself, I'm needed elsewhere, and he's moved up this way. These 2 units, which are right next to that, these 2 units were basically, there's nothing that it would just cost too many action points to do anything about them. So they're just where they are. Over here, we had Rangers, which were going to go up this way with the possibility of interfering with this lot here. Unfortunately, they... let's see, where were they? They didn't want to go. They can move two spaces, of course. They can move 2 hexes. If they'd gone up here, they would have been infiltrating past that one. So they decided instead, let's do an infiltration here. And to bag that there, it would have required that the German the next card turned over would have had to have been double blue and match the symbol. And guess what? It did. So they were already 1 step down. So they were eliminated in the course of trying to do that infiltration. These Rangers here have moved into that position, hopefully with a view in the future of interfering with them and causing a flanking maneuver there, possibly. Although in the strategic, in the macro, as it were, the macroscopic view of the situation, essentially the American commander is looking at these units here, these red dots, and looking at these units over here and saying, although I've got to do the math on this and see if this adds up, to what extent can we just say, look, too tough a nut to crack, okay, just forget it and press on. In other words, we've punched a hole. No, we're not advancing on a broad front, but we've punched a hole here. And remember, they come over to here, so we might trim a little bit on the edges. Perhaps we might have to do that. But at the end of the day, you've always got to think of the victory conditions. There's no point in just attacking enemy units. You've got to think of the victory conditions. So we're looking for those VP hexes. So you've got, I probably will deploy markers at some point to remind me what I'm supposed to be going after. Because we've got VP, 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 okay, like this sort of a thing. So hammering on these, well, there's some VPs down there, but hammering on those 4, for example, okay, makes no difference. Although, well, wait a second, though. I suppose if I was able to bag those, then you get a whole bunch of points if you cleared a draw and removed all obstacles. So that's a serious thought. Anyway, we'll come to that. Yeah, we're not too concerned about what's going on here or even down here, because there's artillery down there, which is great, but the only way you can use that in barraging, for example, is if they're under the command of a headquarters unit. And the headquarters unit is all the way up there. There's another one coming on, but I suppose he will be coming on turn 19. That's not that far away. So if he could be landed safely, perhaps down here, I don't know. But just to put him down there, just to use that artillery over here, I don't know. But then again, with barraging, well, at least in the first half of the game, in barraging, all you can do is disrupt the enemy. You can't damage the enemy. So, yeah. I probably digress at this point, so let's think about that. Anyway, moving on, what else happened? I still got all the units tilted that actually moved. Essentially down here, we had 6 powerful units enter. land, I should say, at the high tide, of course, and they basically moved themselves down to the east, using up 3 action points to so do. One of them landed on top of the engineers. Then that meant that they could get the benefits of traffic direction from the engineers immediately, because they were actually on top of them. So even though they had a range of 0, because the engineer base only just started, they were able to have a free action as a result. So they're all clustering around here, and that means now on the next turn, the engineer will have a range of 1, and they will all get a free action because they are infantry type units on the beach or on the promenade within range of the engineer. So that's exactly what was meant to happen there. And presumably, as one might expect, they're probably going to hot-foot it up the draw there, up the Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer draw. Okay. Let's see. Nothing happened here. Let's see. These forces, because they were delayed so much, they could be positioned anywhere the commander wanted. So that's where they're coming on. Sorry about the camera work there. I'm talking about them. Then over here, same sort of thing. New forces. Four good units arrived on top of the engineers and so forth, or close to, and we're able to move up here. Let's see, the hero moved over there a bit. The HQ moved over to here. It's got is on top of the newly arriving units. Good to be able to command them and get them moving. Pretty soon, probably this HQ here is going to open up a command post. It might perhaps move again one more time before opening up the command post, because otherwise, if it opened it up there, then as the range sort of extends that way, there's not much you can do with it except to attack here. So you want it more sort of that way, so you can go that way and be in range. This hero plodded ahead, was actually going to plot ahead further and bag that as a victory location, because if they'd gone to there, then that would have been bagged as well. But that would have caused a gap in the perimeter here of the blocking the front line, as it were, blocking the German communications from places such as this chap here, or that chap there. So we need to get more units going up here to be able to man the perimeter and so forth. And then, of course, in the next turn, one big thing that's going to be happening is as the engineer bases get to extend their range down here, we'll be able to start deploying garrison counters, which will be a good way of occupying positions so that Germans can't reoccupy them and so forth. So yeah, fascinating stuff. Really like it. It does take a while to work through. That's right. It does take a while to work through the German actions now. The German fire cards, I should say, with the actions on them. But as usual, I'm relying on excellent player aids that have been developed and posted very magnanimously to Board Game Geek. And the one that I'm using here, I've got 5 sheets. This is just one sheet. As you can see, there are 5 sheets there, and I've labeled the top corner there so I can see what they are. Okay, this one's German Action Summary, and sorry, I don't know the name, so I apologize for that, but an enthusiast has created this splendid table and for us, and I'm using that. And of course, there's some of this is in the rule book as well, but some of these sheets are very, very handy that summarize what can be done. And then no doubt with the passage of time, I'll probably be writing notes on here as well. One of the most obvious things to do is, as you can see has been done on here, is if some sort of action has to take place, or any kind of procedure has to be followed, put the rule number reference next to it. So if you have to look it up, you've got the reference there, like you can see. Where's a good example? There you go. If you're doing that, you need to look at 16.5. It's right there. Okay, so all things considered, yes, very exciting stuff. It will take longer to play each turn because of the complexity of what can happen There's so many different things that can happen now when you draw the German fire cards, because they could be firing or they could be performing actions. But it does make it very exciting. Interestingly enough, of course, is that as I mentioned a couple of times before this, I had played. Now it's probably, well, I don't know, close to a year ago, something like that, where I played D-Day at Peleliu. And the reason I got that was I don't have much knowledge of, or much of a sort of enthusiastic pursuit of the history of the war in the Pacific theater. I just don't know that much about it, but I got that one not because of where it was, but because of the game system involved, because I couldn't find D-Day at Omaha anywhere. And of course, in that, you have got these Japanese actions that are happening. You've got tanks as well. You get tanks moving towards you. As I say, you've got tanks in this too as an option, and I chose not to go that far because this is the first time I've ever played it, and it's just too much for me. So yes, in Peleliu there were lots of Japanese actions taking place all the time, including something that's not in this game at all, which was close combat. There was a lot of close combat, and that was a whole procedure where lots and lots of cards in one action, one close combat attack, you'd end up turning over loads of cards to determine sort of blow by blow what was happening in close combat. Very interesting stuff, but interesting that it's not in this at all. Obviously, Pacific theater, different kind of warfare, of course, and also there's the fact that this game was an earlier design than Peleliu, so. It may just be that it was in Peleliu because the Pacific merited it, and it was then not sort of retrofitted into this. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, you think about. I'm thinking about, obviously, if it's a Widerstandsnest, a great big concrete thing. There's not going to be a lot of close combat there, I wouldn't think. And then if you're sort of penetrating hedgerows and that sort of thing. Again, I don't see the close combat there, but of course in the Pacific, we can imagine it a lot more there. Anyway, okay, I digress. It's late, and yes, so turn 17 was good stuff, and on we go to turn 18. And here we are at the start of turn 19. Which would be, let's see, 11:30 hours on the 6th of June, 1944. I've left the counter sort of moved, tilted, so we can see where the principal action was. Now, of course, we're in the extended game. So let's see, what was the interesting things that happened. There were some German reinforcements. Let's see, I think these chaps here, diese Soldaten, both those counters came on in as a result of there are now 2 event phases, and that led to reoccupation of not reinforcement, but reoccupation of Widerstandsnest here, which was empty and had been cleared in the earlier part of the game, and now it's got 2 units in it. The only concession we have there is that at least the top unit is revealed, so we know what's there. Okay, and it can't be reoccupied by an artillery, crew and piece, presumably, so at least it's not going to reinstate artillery. Down there with these 2 units, they're just hanging on, nothing's happened to them. There were some... were there losses? I think, I'm not sure if there were any actual losses. I don't think so, on the American part, because basically what they're trying to do is get themselves sorted out so that they can concentrate on this thrust up the center here, rather than, as mentioned before, it's so important to keep your eye on the victory conditions. And the victory conditions are not to do with taking on and destroying German units. Certainly not that. In fact, you actually get nothing for that. You do lose points, of course, if you've got these, as we've said, we've got these Widerstandsnesten, which are still controlled by the, or not controlled by us, I should say. So we're losing points for that. But running around in these places and attacking diese Soldaten here and here, no, we don't get anything for that. What we need to do is to move forward. We need to occupy the victory positions, which the victory point positions, and they are hexes that are either on or adjacent to either a major road, so that's one of these thick lines here, or a minor road, which is one of these thin lines here, which itself is leading off the south edge of the map. So any major road or any minor road which is leading off the south edge of the map. So we're obviously trying to get control of the roads, not surprisingly. So think of it in those terms. So this big push up the front, and then the other thing that we're trying to do in a big way is get control of draws if we can. Well, I think we're probably going to end up having a go at this draw, but they've got a pretty good defensive position there, so we have to lock horns with that once we're in a position to so do. We've got this draw, so we just got to hang on to it, and we've got to make sure that we maintain the perimeter. So the perimeter right now is this rather irregular shape. The fact that it's irregular doesn't matter, but we've got what in a strategic game would be called joined up contiguous zones of control, but in here we've got units that control the hex they're in and the hex that's next to them, and the key thing is that blocks German communications, unless the one situation is if the German unit has a what's the word I'm looking for? Blockage hex next to it. It can trace supply. It can trace communication through that, but like this unit here, for example, can't go through there to here because that's nowhere to go. That's going into the American position. So if you had a unit that was in here, let's see, it might be able to. I don't know if I can find an example right off the top, but imagine that there was a German unit here, and then imagine that was blockage. So this unit here, even though that is next to that unit there, trace it out through there. So the idea is that they could still sneak communications and munitions and so forth, presumably through that. But hopefully you get the idea. Anyway, so we've got this joined up bit here. So that's a sort of the US zone at the moment. I'm going to make sure that we keep the perimeter joined up, which is why some of the moves were rather modest. This unit here, again, was not able to move up to there because that would have meant that there was then a 1, 2, 3 hex gap between them and them, which would have been a hole. So we don't want to do things like that. Anyway, most of the units, as we can see by the units that are turned at an angle to show that they have moved, most of the units that are, basically off the beach, were able somehow to move. Of course, now we have 3 actions per division instead of 2, and we've also got the engineers are helping as well. So you have the engineer base here and the engineer base there, which I can now flip over. I flipped that over as a memory aid because if artillery falls in that sector, so it's the western sector this time, artillery did fall in here, and that means in such a turn the engineers cannot provide traffic management, which means that's giving free actions to units that are within their range, and they also cannot extend their range. So I flipped it over to indicate that, and also flipped this over as well. Well, that's done now, so I can turn that over so they're back to normal now, and that's back to normal now. And as we can see on the other side, in the eastern sector, these engineers, the 336 and 348, were able to extend their range. So their range now goes out 1 hex, and they are able to provide traffic management to units within that range, and clear the obstacles also, and also place garrison counters into German positions. So we have the arrival of the first garrison counter there, which is occupied Widerstandsnest 65 Nord. Very good. Right, what else? Over here, we had the Rangers decided to sort of whittle their way a little bit further to the south, just to sort of, I'm not quite sure what they're doing up there, but I guess the idea is that they might be able to sort of come around here and interfere, maybe in a flanking maneuver on something that we did want to attack, because we've pretty much given up attacking. You know, what is the earthly point of attacking them? Now, what I'm going to have to do, if I've got free actions hanging around from somewhere, which is sort of unlikely, but if I did, I would slowly try to extricate that lot from there and get them moving up here, I suppose, and around there to try and get some VPs going up there. Anyway, yes. So what else have we got? So we're trying to move off the beach. We've got some very strong units ready to push forward. And then, of course, yes, the other thing that we need to do is to get the units with lots of steps off the map board down there, to claim victory points for their steps. Because if we want to have a US victory, we have to have 40 victory points. And we've already had 2 turns, so we've got 14 turns left to do it. We need 40 victory points. And because at the moment, Kampfgruppe Meyer is over there, and with its 8 units, they all count, each count as a negative victory point if they've not been deployed yet. And we've also got 9 of these positions. So you put those two together, we got negative 17 coming from that lot. And then over here we've got 6. So right now our victory point total is negative 11, minus 11. So we'd have to get 51 victory points from where we are right now, in order to get some species of US victory. So you have to get 51 points in 14 turns. So that's quite a lot to do. Anyway, you get the general idea, and off we go with turn 19 coming up. Oh, and a big stack of reinforcements about to enter the beach landing boxes, so that's always good. All right, here we are at the start of turn 20, which is noon on the 6th of June, 1944. And I've left tilted the units that moved or had an action last turn. I've also introduced yet another marker, and I think the system is fairly consistent. The red-brown ones continue to be the same thing. Those are the Widerstandsnesten that I need to take to stop them being negative victory points. So, for example, each one of these is a negative victory point. Then the blue squares are the victory point reinforcement positions. The blue ones are the ones that are under my control, and the red ones are the ones that are not under my control. So they would be good targets for me to try and get under my control, because each one is worth a point. I haven't done all of them because I don't have enough red cubes to do that. So I've marked the ones that are the most obvious ones. There are some outliers beyond that. I look over here now, interestingly enough, and let's see, is that a V? No, it's not. So over here, there are actually none over there. So, but over here we've got here and here, for example. So those two are not marked anyway. So as we can see, they're following the main road up there to the south, and then over here, again, it's the roads that are the important thing, or the minor roads that are leading off the southern edge. So there we go. And of course, as we move over further, we've got these and these and these, this sort of thing. Okay, but I don't think we're going to be going in that direction, and evidently I have to clear my throat. Right, so as we can see, there's a lot of work to do. And we've already gone through 3 turns of the 16 of the second half of the game. So that means we've got 13 turns left to press our victory. We can also see that in the first division, over here, just about every counter, is it indeed the case that every single counter? No, not that one. No, and that one was disrupted. But otherwise, just about every counter did have an action of some kind. So it was because of the combination of the increasing range of the engineers, which are now up to 2, and also the headquarters unit here was able to get things moving forward. We've also got General Wyman. So yes, a lot of command structure going on around here, being able to get chaps moving forward. It's a very congested situation because there are bluffs, and there's 2 things. There are bluffs, and also we're trying very diligently as much as possible to just stay the heck out of the line of fire of this... what is that? Is that a reinforcement position? Yes, it is. Okay. There are some I was checking it because there are some Widerstandsnesten even quite substantially inland, like these 2 here, for example. But anyway, I should have known it was a reinforcement position because they are surrounded by these squares, little squares. Right. Anyway, so I even had the luxury of being able to get these units here to move to the west to try and get them out of there. It's unlikely that they're going to make it, and this one here is going to hurt because it will add to this stack here. That's right, we did lose 1 unit. That's these chaps here, the let's see, Able Company of the 1st Battalion of the 16th Infantry Regiment. They were lost, brave fellows, and well, that's to say that much of them were lost, and their remnant, of course, is still in play. And so let's see, what else have we got? Yeah, so that's increased that. So now here we've got 7. We can suffer a total of 14, so we can suffer 7 more during the course of this second half of the game. Anyway, so they're trying to make their way across. The engineers are doing very well. They now have a range of 2, which is very helpful, and that will just keep increasing, hopefully. The thing that stops it, remember, is if incoming artillery fire makes it in this sector on the turn, and we've actually had that happen twice over here. So they are there, and their range has not extended at all because they had artillery again in the 19th turn, the 11:30 turn. So that was frustrating. What else happened? Right, these guys have appeared here. They're going to be coming on now. They're going to be landing, I should say, in this turn. So they'll be going up to high tide, of course. So they'll be going straight up here and straight up there. Happily, that's an area that's clear. I had thought, or rather the American commander had thought, of landing those 19th Division assets down here and going into this sort of a situation to try and get some of these remnants moving and move in here to try and basically claim all these Widerstandsnesten down there. But the problem is to use such effective troops to do that and a lot of these places, well, they're all double. They've all got 2 counters and they're difficult to get to. So we're probably just going to write that off as a loss. And, well, we almost certainly are now because these are landing here. So they're going to go inland and try to keep bagging victory points as much as possible. Spread out, bag victory points. Keep expanding the pocket here so that it's a contiguous line of control so that the Germans can't claim to be able to be in communication with any positions that are within this pocket. And then as they continue to expand, also to have a go at those 2 reinforcement positions to be able to finally claim control of this draw here. Indeed, on the very next turn, it's planned that they will get into position to attack them on the next turn. Right. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, as I say, a bit of a tangle here because you can see from this orange dotted line here, that's all bluff. So obviously the draw is down below, and then the bluff is up here. So difficult to get things moving there. So we're plodding away, but we've got lots of commanders there and so forth and so on. So here's to it. Let's see what else. We did have an interesting thing happen. We had a redeployment, I believe, didn't we? Yeah, I think that was a redeployment there, actually, with the forces that were here. I believe they redeployed to here. They definitely were there, and I believe they redeployed to here. So that's something that wouldn't have happened in the first half of the game. Let's see, beyond that, was there anything exotic or anything specific to the second half of the game? We had, let's see, we've been able to unleash some more garrison counters, which is good. Let's see, I think that's probably about it. Yeah, so that, all right, that's where we are then, and we'll press on with turn 20. And here we are at the start of turn 21, which is to say 12:30 hours on D-Day, the 6th of June 1944. And yes, good progress is being made, pushing inland. However, there were heavy losses over on the 1st Division, over on the eastern sector, which actually this time was from the new feature in the second half of the game of mortar fire, which came down and landed on these two units here, which has now brought up the losses there to 9 units. So there are only 5 more that can be taken before the engagement is lost. 14 is the maximum. So got to be very careful there with taking losses to units that are flipped over to this side. So as you can imagine, they start out looking like that. They get flipped over to this. So if that unit takes a loss, it ends up over here. Which so that basically means you, whenever possible, you do not want to put units. You certainly don't want to use those units in combat unless it's a foregone conclusion of a pushover. But you also don't want to have them in the front line if possible, because things are starting to heat up on the front line. We've had some ambushes as well. Tend not to do a lot of damage, but they can be very annoying from the point of disrupting units. In fact, as a matter of fact, I think I've got the disruption markers already in place, or rather still in place, from that turn. Anyway, so pressing on with a sort of general situation. As we can see, we've got a bit of a traffic jam here coming up the draw, trying to get guys forward. And then here we finally managed to get these 2 units into position. There were other units available. They could have been doubled up, which would have produced very large numbers. But it was decided by the commander of the 1st Division that we'd have a go with these instead, and just one apiece, because that way they're not a concentrated fire target. Because if they were 2 there and 2 there, then it would mean that they effectively are in intensive fire zones. So God help them if Brown came up, because if Brown came up, all let's see, they would both have been hit. Yes, they would. Yes, good. Right. Anyway, so we don't want that. And then elsewhere, we basically it's just sort of slowly expanding the pocket, as it were. There you are, you see, that sort of thing. And of course, forces have been arriving, and they've been shunted up the at the draw, this one and this one. And of course, if we can clear that, and we can clear that, then we can then claim the draw Very good, very good. Let's see. There's been a sort of well, it's these two units here, I suppose, which are, well, you could still count that unit as being part of this contiguous line of control. That one has gone out by itself. The idea being to bag both those victory points there, but well, we'll see if they may get attacked, and so forth and so on. And then over here, we've had, let's see, we had no movement here. We did have some movement. The hero, what's his name? Let's use his name. Okay, with the Rangers there. What's left of them? Bingham. Okay, so they've moved into a reinforcement position there. So, of course, if they're in it, it means it can't get occupied by the enemy, which is a jolly nice thing. And then these chaps have actually moved into a victory location there. Okay, good. Let's see. Anything else terribly exciting happened? I'm always keen to try and pick out things that have happened that are specific to the second half of the game to mention those in the video segment. But there was one thing I noticed, and that was that this particular half of let's see. Yeah, there we go. Of the Widerstands Nest 68 Süd. Okay, so that half there is indeed in German communication. And it's not controlled by the Americans because they can't exert control over a bluff. So there's a bluff going all the way around there. So if they had somebody here, for example, or here, obviously, or there, they'd have it. Now, the thing that they can do, of course, though, is that as the engineers were finally, that's right, the engineers were finally able to improve their range. So now they have a range of 1, but eventually they'll get to the point where they'll be able to put a garrison marker in there, and that'll take care of that. There was one other thing happened that was unusual. That's right. Well, artillery came down on this side this time, so that meant that these engineers were not able to extend their range. So I can flip that over now back to normal. There we go. Lovely. And that was interesting too, because that's right. That was an artillery action from, I believe it was the 88s down here. Did that. That was not artillery on an event card, so that's a new thing in the second half of the game. Yes, very interesting stuff. We did have another redeploy. That's right, we had a redeployment. I think they went over to, was it here? I think it was. Yep, forces redeployed here from somewhere over in this, more over in this region. Can't remember where they were exactly. No, I can't. No. Well, they wouldn't have been in there, would they? No. So, because that's inside the pocket. So they would have been out of communication. So I think perhaps, I think they actually came from here. Yeah, that was right, because they were in a victory position. And they're only able to, if they're starting a victory position, they're only able to redeploy to another victory position. But they did anyway, because over here they didn't have anyone in their field of fire. And they redeployed to a location where they did have troops in their field of fire. So there we go. They don't anymore, but they did at the time. Right. So all good. Yes, very interesting stuff. It is definitely the case, as I mentioned, predicted, but it wasn't hard to predict, that with all the German actions, of course, now it does mean that each German turn is taking rather longer to sort of execute, but it's fascinating stuff. And now with all the Americans showing up, there is of course, because there are now more American units and they're spread out over a larger area, it means that each American turn also takes longer. But it's a splendid affair, and in terms of what progress they're making, in terms of how likely are they to be able to claim a victory at the end of all this, I really don't have much of an idea at the moment, but we're slogging forward and trying to bag what we can. And then eventually, of course, the thing is that, you get 1 point for every infantry, for example, or I think armor as well, or tanks, that you exit off the southern edge of the map, as long as you keep it in communication. Okay, fine. The exit hex in communication at the end of the game. That's right. So that's all very well. But of course, the thing is that when you do that, what you're doing is you are constantly reducing your combat forces, because they've gone down there. So if the Germans then start counterattacking in some sort of measure, then you're going to have less and less chaps around. The other thing too, of course, is that in order to be able to keep everything in communication, you want to be trying to trying to stop the Germans from blocking it. So that's why we're trying to keep these lines of continuous troops to stop that from happening. Right, okay, enough said. Let's press on to turn 22. Right, here we are at the start of turn 22, which is 1300 hours on the 6th of June, 1944. And we can see a sort of shape is forming here, where we have the 29th Infantry Division going up the draw here and heading off south. Okay, we're actually within 1 hex of the southern edge of the map there, and so they've got a good strong line there with very few gaps in it. And the thing is, of course, is that what you've actually got there is a pocket, as I keep describing it, where coming down from the beach, going all the way up here. This one's sort of an outlier. This hero up there, who's he? He's an unusual name. Oh, no, it's somebody else. Schwartz. Okay, or Schwartz. Yep. And so he's a bit of an outlier from the formation itself, because, anyway, you see what I mean? We go up here, and then we go across here, because we only got 2 hexes there, so that means that this hex is influenced by him, this hex is influenced by him, so therefore we're blocking German communication down into this whole interior of the pocket here. So there we go, up there, across there, coming down here, all very stretched out and so forth down here, because a lot of boys have been hit awful hard down there. Yes, we did. We seem to be getting into a sort of a mode where there's not so much combat in terms of the US attacking anyone in particular. They attacked here because over here the commander of the 1st Division has got it into his head that his boys have fought long and hard for this draw, and he wants that draw. They've paid for that draw. I suppose it'd be General Wyman maybe is decided to put the boot in and take that draw. Now, it has to be borne in mind, of course, that you've got to keep these things in proportion, because they didn't take it in the first half. If they take it in the second half, yes, great, it's all very neat and tidy. But the thing is, the victory conditions state that for getting the draw, that is, say, clearing it, no one have a line of fire into it, all obstacles removed, etc., all nice, pristine and wrapped up and ready to go, gets you 4 points. 4 points. Remember, 4 points can be gained from getting, for example, that unit there, which has got 3 steps, that unit there, which has got 1 step. So if you could get those 2 units off the southern edge, that would give you 4 points. So It could be that the tail's wagging the dog here. It could be that these units should not be fighting over this draw, but they should just be getting themselves the heck off the southern edge of the map. But, well, we're almost there. And they attacked diese Soldaten here in this reinforcement position. Turned out they had a strength of, what was it, 4. So they weren't able, they had more than them, but they weren't able to double them. So therefore they lost their depth marker. And on the next attack, hoping that, everything goes according to plan, they're able to attack them again next turn. They will be doubled, and so the Germans will be eliminated. And then once that's done, they can then, if they wish, move on to this one. It would seem very logical. You got that. You might as well get the draw. Move on to that one. You don't know what might be in there. But anyway, move on to that one. We've got lots of, other friends that can help us. And then I suppose the thing is then, apart from the draw, once you get rid of those two there, which is sort of a thorn in the flesh, I mean, you can just waltz freely then all over this lot. And so you gather up all these victory points, be able to form a nice line up here, and then just start sending everybody off the southern edge of the map. Although, as I say, the thing that has to be borne in mind that when you send the people off the southern edge of the map, it means that you've got to take from the troops that are forming the borders, as it were, to be able to send off the edge of the map. Anyway, but that will be what will happen eventually. It seems to me that there isn't going to be, although it's interesting that because of the German actions that can take place in the second half of the game, where you, as I've described before, that what that means is for those that are not so familiar with the game, although what you're doing watching turn 22, I'm not sure if you're not familiar with the game, but anyway. So typical card, this is one of the cards that's been used up in this game. So here you've got, well, that's an armored symbol, so that doesn't affect the new actions that the Germans can take. But here, for example, so you got R, so that's all sort of resupply, reinforce, do all sorts of interesting things to begin with R, or redeploy. And then you've got P, which is patrol and other things. So it can mean that the AI German opponent can do all kinds of things that he didn't do in the first half of the game. But even so, I'm not sure how much that's going to interfere with the American plans of just sort of getting everybody that way. One of the big deals is that a methodical approach has been taken to make sure that they have built this pocket so that it means that the German units, the whole point, of course, is it means that the German units cannot just suddenly appear as reinforcements, sort of like here or here or here, because they're surrounded by Americans. They couldn't get through. They wouldn't be able to get the reinforcements through to there. So that's the whole point. Anyway, still very enjoyable. What did we have? We also had German artillery keeps coming through, and so in this particular turn, it was the worst turn yet for the engineers, because the engineers in both locations, these guys here and these guys here, weren't able to do anything this turn. They weren't able to direct traffic, and they weren't able to extend their engineering range because there was artillery coming in all over the shop, and an absolute shower. Let's see, what else did we have? Basically trying to maintain or trying to establish at least some form of a chain of command. So you've got sort of like General Wyman down here handing, hopefully you would get the engineers up and running, then they can hand off infantry to General Wyman, who can hand them off to the HQ over here, HQ of the, what are they? That would be the 16th Regiment, I suppose. Yeah, 16th Regiment. And they got another HQ coming on soon from the 22nd. No, the 18th Regiment will be coming on soon. And then over here, HQ-wise, yes, you've got HQ here of the 115th, and you've got General Kota, who's been around for quite a long time. You remember, he's been on the beach for a long time. And then up there, we've got the HQ of the 116th. And leading the way, we have lots of heroes and an inspired unit. I mean, why not? Okay, so that's it for now. We'll be ready to start up the 22nd turn now. And then in the 23rd turn, I see that all the beach obstacles will be clear. That'll be good news. And I say, here's to it. Right, so here we are at the start of turn 23, which is 1330, D-Day, the 6th of June, 1944. And the units are still tilted, the ones that moved. And also what I have done is tilted the German, just out of interest for us, the German positions that redeployed, which is one of the things that can happen with the jolly interesting actions that the Germans can get up to in the second half of the game. So I can't remember where they came from, but anyway, one lot redeployed to here. Okay, fair enough. And then here we see one lot redeployed to here, because what they do is they redeploy to a position where they can have enemy units in their line of fire, and it has to be in communication as well. And if they were already in a victory position, a VP, they have to redeploy to a victory position. Okay, so, and there's one there as well. Okay, all right. Right, so they're getting in our faces, so to speak. I believe we also had an ambush, and we also had the traditional artillery, which came down on the western beach in the area of the 29th Division, and that meant that once again the engineers were not able to assist with traffic, and they were not able to extend their range. So let's flip that over, because that's done now. And of course, one of the things is, I'm not quite sure if I'm adjudicating this correctly. It hasn't come up. But if we look, for example, at the, well, temporarily here, because they've got reinforcements coming in, but at the moment, on the eastern beach, there are no infantry or non-infantry units except for the engineer marker, and I'm not sure if that can be hit by artillery. I suppose I'll have to look that up, because what I was wondering was, well, if there are no units there for the artillery to damage, it's almost like, you know, if there's no one in the forest when a tree falls, does it really make a noise? But so in other words, would you count if artillery was called for to land here and the only thing on the beach was the engineer marker, does that count as artillery falling, and then therefore would that mean that the engineers couldn't do their thing? It seems to me, well, I don't know. I mean, it might be that, well, if there are no combat forces on the beach, then you could argue, well, maybe in that case the Germans wouldn't bother firing at the beach, but if there were only engineers on the beach, but that seems a bit thin. So I don't know, I'll have to look it up. Then over here we've still got stragglers hanging around on the beach. These chaps are on the beach. It is only them now. One underneath there is disrupted. I suppose I should take that off, shouldn't I? And let's take that off now. There we go. They were disrupted by who were they? They were disrupted by them. That's right. Yes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take care of that. It's happening live and on camera. Disruption markers being removed. Can you stand the tension? Right. Beyond that, let's see. There was an advance 1 hex further up there, but basically what's happened is because this position was occupied, forces in this region they've ganged up to get themselves into a position where on the next turn, they couldn't do it this turn, there's a lot of bocage, and the bocage really does slow you down. You can only move 1 hex unless you've got a road working for you. So on the next turn, they can then fully deploy. Well, if they use them as well, they could actually occupy 4 hexes there, which they might do, because I don't actually know what the sort of variables are on what you might turn up under there, but I know that under 1 I turned up fully 5 points And I'm not sure if it can be even more than that. And the thing is, are they in bocage themselves? Yes, they are. So they're doubled. I mean, if it was 5 doubled, that would be 10, which is pretty significant. Pretty much sure that happened over here with that's with that lot, which in the first phase of the game, the first half of the game was being attacked, and the attack was just aborted because they were too strong. Okay, so that's what's going on up there. Other than that, it's just the usual business of trying to do the best of having HQs and the General Kota in this case, and over here General Wyman form a sort of fireman's bucket chain, as it were, of handing the units off onto one another to get them to move up, which in this case means south. Get them to move inland. And we even had here, we had a situation where those 2 units, for example, didn't move at all because it would have done dangerous things with the pocket, as I keep referring to it here. Oh, yeah, I suppose the other big thing that did happen, wait a minute, the other big thing that happened was that this position here was overrun. So that was taken successfully, finally, and that means now there's only that position there, and these chaps are gearing up so that next turn they can move forward, and then on the next turn they will be able to assault that position. There's enough of them that they can do flanking attack. Okay, good. Yes, and then once we've cleared that position here, that means then that once the engineers have enough of a range to clear the obstacles, we will be able to claim the draw. And so if they are out of the way, the American commander was thinking if they were out of the way, and then if you could get them out of the way, then, I mean, you've basically, look at that, you've got all these victory points up here, which you can just go picking like cherries in a basket, like a kid in a candy store, or something like that. And once you've bagged them all, you then just shove off to the south by exit C and claim points for every step of the men who shove off. And when I say steps, of course, to those not too familiar with the game, I'm talking about the dots on the side here, which shows the strength of the unit in terms of the muster of the men, as opposed to its combat value. So here, for example, that stack there, those 2, we can see that they have got 3 and 3, so there's 6 steps right there, and they're worth equivalent victory points, 6 victory points in other words, if you can exit them off the map on one of these lettered positions like C or D or E, or all the other ones around the other sides of the map. But the key thing is that on the last turn of the game, wherever it was that you exited them off, it has to be in US communication on the last turn of the game. It would be tragic if you exited a lot of men on one of those routes and then it fell out of communication by the last turn of the game. Right, so that's the general idea. Yes, so this redeployment stuff is it's in your face, it's definitely there. Then the ambush tends to, as I think I've probably said before, unless you're standing right next to an unoccupied position, let's say, for example, you were sort of standing, you had men there, and then this position got reoccupied, so they get reoccupied here. Now you're here in a intensive fire zone, so that is something to watch out for. And of course, it makes sense, because, if you were advancing up this way and you've got, it's an intensive fire zone. Why is that intensive and that one's not intensive? Well, that's bocage. It's got cover, you see. Here, no cover. So if this looks like, oh, that might be an enemy position, and then you advance into an open field to approach the enemy position, doesn't sound like very good tactics, does it now? No. I've played squad leader, I've played advanced squad leader, and on the miniatures level, I've played crossfire. So I know what I'm talking. We was assaulted by them bocages, Anyway, okay, all good. It's getting ready for turn 23, which the tide's going out, so we'll be back to mid-tide, and so we'll have further to walk up the beach, which is always rather jolly. But all the obstacles will be clear, which is rather splendid. because we won't have to worry about clearing obstacles anymore. Right. Okay. And here we are, ready to start turn 23, which is 13:30 hours, D-Day, the 6th of June, 1944. And I've left the units turned, the ones that moved or took an action in turn 22, the immediately preceding turn. And we can see that we've got, the forces are moving forward. Basically here, I mean, you've got what looks more or less like a sort of a traffic jam waddling its way up there, up the draw, and getting onto the high ground and pressing forth from there. Okay, all very jolly keen chaps. Keen as mustard, or to put it another way, guys with a lot of moxie. And they are taking a look at diese Soldaten here who have appeared, and they're going to have to deal with them, I think. So there's probably going to be an attack shaping up there. Well, there is, yes, because, you must forgive me, it's actually been a couple of days since I took this move, and now I'm trying to recap it off the top of my head. Basically, these units have moved into position so that on this turn, 23, they will move into position and to be able to attack, and then on turn 24, they will actually attack, and they should be able to, they've got some strong forces up there, so they should be able to overwhelm diese Soldaten here. Okay, then over here, of course, the guys have overwhelmed the reinforcement position that was there, and they've, similar to here, they've lined themselves up so that in the next turn, this coming turn, they're going to move into position with flanking positions and all that sort of thing in order to be able to take on diese Soldaten here in this reinforcement position. In both cases, the reinforcements are unrevealed. We don't know what's in there, so we have to be pretty well ready for anything. And the idea of wait a minute, are we wandering off the path here? Shouldn't we be pressing south? Well, the idea here is to bag that last position there, which will mean that we finally completely control the draw, and that's not a victory position itself, but we will get the 4 points then for the draw. And once we've got rid of that, now there's also these guys up here who have got their eyes on this victory position here, and they may need some help from their friends coming from this direction, but once they are in position to do that, if they can bag that victory position before any other reinforcements show up in this area, then I'm just going to call them the chaps for a change, would be able to just wander off down here, get stuck in and grab all those victory points down there, and that would be rather jolly. And then as a last sort of icing on the cake, they do all that, and then they just waltz off to the south, and we get all the victory points for each one of their steps, as has been established before. Down here, I think it happened in this turn just now, where there's now nothing down here except the engineer unit. Nothing down on the beach, except the engineer unit. There was a unit, if you remember, I think it was an anti-aircraft unit or something like that was slowly trying to slog its way up the beach. But in the end, they were picked off by, if I remember, it was artillery. I don't know if it was artillery. Picked off by something. The Bosch. That's it. It's picked off by the Bosch. And then over here, we've still got. No, we don't have a lot, do we? No, the efforts were made to try and get the chaps off the beach, so that if the Germans have an artillery card, they cannot fire on them, because if I remember correctly, artillery. Let's just check that while I'm actually speaking. Yeah, because your artillery targets are beach landing box or beach hex, and that's it. Right. So if there's nobody here in a beach landing box and there's nobody on the beach, then this sort of random artillery that shows up is not going to be magging one of them. So there we are. Yes, so if... but it is a sort of last thought. Sad for the chaps who are on the beach, because the commanders are more focused on getting the chaps forward than they are on pulling the last units off the beach. So, well, that's what's going on there. One thing that is happening is that there have been several cases of German reinforcement units redeploying, which is a nice part of the AI, as it were, of the opponent. So if they find themselves in a reinforcement position, if you get a redeploy turns up on the card, an R, and they're a reinforcement position with nobody in their line of fire, and they could redeploy to an area where they do have someone in their line of fire, then they will. They'll just up sticks and move to the new location, as long as it's within their sector, which is to say, I just dropped my pipe. Hang on a second.